There's a feeling a lot of people know well, but rarely know how to name. It's that feeling when your paycheck hits, you haven't made any big purchase yet, you haven't bought anything luxurious, you haven't done anything reckless, and somehow, not long after your account already looks noticeably lighter. Rent, car payments, insurance, a few takeout meals because you were too exhausted to cook, a handful of small subscriptions renewing on autopilot. One or two convenience purchases that did not seem like a big deal at the time. Each expense feels normal on its own. None of them seems big enough to set off alarm bells. But when they all pile up together, they create a very familiar feeling. It starts to feel like you are constantly trying to keep up with your own money. What wears so many people down is not reckless overspending or some obvious lack of responsibility. Most of the time, they are just living the way a lot of people around them live. They go to work, treat themselves to small rewards, upgrade a few things to make life feel a little better, and choose convenience because every day already feels overloaded. On the surface, all of it sounds reasonable. The problem is that those small, reasonable choices over time quietly turn into a lifestyle that becomes more and more expensive to maintain. And that is really the heart of this video. Maybe your problem is not that you do not earn enough. Maybe the problem is that your life has become too expensive to keep running. You are not overspending. You are just living inside a system that is quietly draining you. The most dangerous money trap rarely comes from one big, stupid decision. It usually does not start with some reckless purchase you instantly regret. Most of the time, it shows up in a much quieter way. You move into a slightly nicer apartment because you feel like you deserve a better place to live. You upgrade to a car that feels smoother to drive and looks a little more put together. You start paying for a few monthly services because each one feels inexpensive on its own. You order takeout more often because after a long day, convenience always feels justified. That is how lifestyle drift happens. Life does not get expensive overnight. It gets more expensive little by little, so gradually that you barely notice when things start to change. Each upgrade only adds a little. Each decision makes sense in the moment. But then those small costs do not go away. They stay. They become part of your default monthly life. And at some point, your paycheck no longer feels relieving when it hits, because too much of that money already has somewhere to go before you even decide what you want to do with it. That is why fixed costs are so much more dangerous than the occasional splurge. An expensive dinner might bother you for a few days, but rent that is higher than it needs to be. A car that stretches your comfort zone insurance that keeps creeping up subscriptions stacking on top of each other, and the habit of buying convenience because you do not have the time or energy for anything else. Those are the things that quietly squeeze the air out of your finances. These costs do not shock you. They wear you down. They force you to earn enough every month just to stay in place. That is why the problem is usually not one decision. It is the structure of the life you are maintaining. Once that structure becomes too expensive, you start to feel like you are chasing your own life. Not because you lack discipline, but because you have built a life that takes too much money to keep running. And this is the part that makes a lot of people feel relieved once they truly understand it. A lot of spending decisions do not come from ignorance or irresponsibility. They come from emotion, from exhaustion, from the need to exhale after a day that felt too long, from that urge to lift yourself a little when life starts to feel heavy. A lot of people are not buying something because they truly need it. They are buying it because in that moment, it makes them feel better, more hopeful, or at the very least, a little less worn out. That is why stress spending is so common. When your mind is overloaded, you naturally reach for things that give you an instant sense of control. One click to place the order. One new item. One convenient meal. Something that makes today feel a little less bleak than yesterday. The problem is that the relief usually does not last very long. The charge does. And when that pattern repeats, you are not just spending money on stuff or services. You are using money to patch over the places where you feel mentally and emotionally drained. Self-reward works similarly, it just sounds nicer. You work hard, you deal with pressure, you push yourself more than you want to, so you tell yourself that you deserve something good. That thought is completely human. Nobody wants to live like a machine that only knows how to hold back and deny itself. But the problem starts when the reward stops being a conscious choice and becomes your default way of coping with life. When every stressful week seems to call for a purchase, a delivery, or a small upgrade to make yourself feel okay again, money starts flowing out, not because of real need, but because you are trying to buy the feeling that you are still okay. Another very common pattern is buying for your future self, not for who you are right now, but for the version of you that you hope to become. You buy workout gear for the version of you that will wake up early and become more disciplined. You buy kitchen tools for the version of you that is finally going to meal prep every week. You buy clothes, books, devices, and furniture for the version of you that feels more successful, more organized, more put together. And in the moment you buy those things, it can feel like you are getting closer to that version of yourself. But a lot of the time, what you are really buying is not a tool. It is a temporary feeling of progress. That is the part people often miss. A lot of people are not spending money to show off. They are spending money to feel like they are moving forward, to feel like life is getting better, to feel like they are not standing still. A new phone, a nicer room, and a more polished item can create the feeling that your life is being upgraded along with you. But if you are not careful, you start confusing actually improving your life with buying the feeling of improvement. And that is when money stops being a tool for real security and starts becoming emotional pain relief instead. And once money starts becoming a way to soothe the feeling that you are standing still, a lot of people move into an even harder trap to recognize. It is the trap of looking like you are doing well in life, not necessarily to show off. Not everyone is trying to impress other people. A lot of the time, it is something much more ordinary and human than that. You want your car to look a little more respectable because you are not a college student anymore. You want your apartment to feel nicer because you have worked hard and do not want to live in that temporary half-settled feeling forever. You want to upgrade your phone, replace the couch, fix up the kitchen, or add a few pieces of furniture because you want to look around and feel like your life is moving forward. The problem is that those things rarely come alone. A nicer car usually brings a higher payment, higher insurance, higher repair costs, and an invisible lifestyle standard that the rest of your spending starts trying to match. A nicer apartment is not just higher rent. It usually comes with better furniture, more polished decor, higher day-to-day living costs, and a quiet feeling that everything else in your life now has to look the part too. A new phone is not just a new device. It is the feeling that you are still keeping up, still doing okay, still not falling behind. And because all of it sounds so reasonable, it becomes very hard to notice that you are not just upgrading your stuff, you are upgrading the default cost of your life. Other people's perception carries more weight than most of us want to admit. No one says it out loud, but almost everyone feels that pressure to look like they are growing, doing better, becoming more successful than they were last year. Especially when the world around you, both online and in real life, tends to measure success by whatever can be seen right away. The car you drive, the place you live, the look of your living room, the phone in your hand. The longer you live inside that kind of environment, the easier it becomes to use outward appearances to reassure yourself that you are on the right track. But looking wealthy is not the same as feeling secure. Someone can have a nice car, a nice home, beautiful furniture, and still feel their chest tighten every time an unexpected bill shows up. They can still feel unable to leave the job that is draining them. They can still live in a state where they constantly have to earn enough just to keep everything looking fine on the surface. That is the real cost. You can spend so much money making your life look successful that you no longer leave yourself enough breathing room for your life to actually be stable. And this is where a lot of people misunderstand money the most. They assume the most expensive item is the one with the highest price tag. Usually it is not. The most expensive item is often the one that looks completely normal when you buy it, but then quietly makes your life more expensive every month, every year, and just a little heavier in your mind. The real cost of something rarely shows up on the receipt. It shows up in the part of your life that item begins to take over once you bring it home. That is the hidden cost most of us seriously underestimate. You buy a massage chair, but what you are really buying is the floor space to keep it, the electricity to run it, the time to clean around it, and the awkward feeling a few months later when you no longer use it, but still have to live with it sitting there. You buy a nicer car, but what you are really buying is higher insurance, higher repair costs, more maintenance, and a new lifestyle standard that other expenses start rising to match. Very few things arrive alone. Most of them pull an entire ecosystem of costs in behind them. That is the ecosystem cost. But money is still not the whole story. There is also mental load, the psychological weight that possessions and upgrades create. Everything you own is something that has to be stored, kept up, cleaned, fixed, remembered, and sometimes worried about. A home filled with more stuff does not just cost more. It also keeps your mind busier. A lot of people do not realize they are not tired only because of work. They are also tired because they are living among too many things that need to be maintained. And maintenance is what keeps that burden going. Buying something is one moment. Taking care of it, keeping it working, fixing it, replacing it, that is the part that repeats. Then there is opportunity cost, which may be the most expensive part of all and the easiest to miss. Every dollar tied up in things that do not meaningfully improve your life is a dollar not going into your emergency fund, not going into long-term investing, and not going into the breathing room you will need when life suddenly changes. That is why an item does not just cost you money once. It can also cost you peace of mind later. You are not just buying the thing itself. You are buying another piece of what it takes to maintain your life. And this is where the definition of wealth needs to change. Most of us grow up thinking wealth means having more, a nicer house, a better car, cleaner, newer things, a life that clearly looks like it has moved up a level. But at some point you realize there is another kind of wealth that matters far more. It is the kind where life does not scare you so easily anymore. An unexpected bill does not make your chest tighten. One rough month does not shake your whole system. A bad job cannot keep you trapped just because you have no way out. Wealth is not about having a lot of things. It is about having fewer things that can throw you into panic. That is where optionality becomes so important. Put simply, optionality means having real choices in your life. It is the ability to say yes or no without money wrapping its hands around your throat. It is being able to leave a job that is wearing you down, not because you are reckless, but because you have enough cushion to not drown the moment you walk away. It is when something goes wrong, your car breaks down, a medical bill shows up, a family member needs help, and you do not feel like your whole world is about to collapse. It is being able to change direction, learn something new, try something different, or simply stop and breathe without feeling like you are making a financial mistake you cannot recover from. All of that comes from margin, the breathing room between what you earn and what your life demands from you. Margin is not flashy. It does not look good in a post. It does not give you that instant feeling of success the way a new purchase does. But margin is what keeps you from being backed into a corner. It is your emergency fund. It is savings you do not have to touch. It is living below your maximum capacity, not right on the edge of it. It is refusing to build a life that needs every dollar you make just to stay standing. That is why the person who is truly wealthy is not always the one who looks the wealthiest. Sometimes it is the person driving a regular car who sleeps well at night, the person in a modest home who is not living with a constant undercurrent of worry, the person who can leave a job, absorb a setback, or change the direction of their life without being crushed by it. In the end, money is not most powerful when it helps you look better than other people. It is most powerful when it gives you the freedom to choose how you live. So the next question is, how to make your life feel lighter financially without turning it into an exercise in deprivation. A lot of people hear the word cut back and immediately picture a cramped life where they are always saying no. But that is not the goal here. The goal is to stop building a life that keeps you stressed just to maintain it. And if you want to do that, the first place to look is not the small stuff. It is the underlying pressure built into your life. That underlying pressure is made up of the expenses that quietly drain you every month before you even get a chance to actually live your life. It is rent that is higher than it needs to be, a car that costs more than makes sense, subscriptions you barely use but still keep paying for, and a pace of life that keeps pushing you to buy convenience because you no longer have the time or energy for anything else. If you want to breathe easier around money, start by lowering the things that are quietly bleeding you in the background. You do not need to be extreme. You just need to be honest. What is truly improving your quality of life and what is only still there because of habit or image. A lot of people try to save money in tiny places, while the real thing crushing them is the overall structure of their life. After that, create friction around spending and make good decisions easier to follow through on. Do not build your financial future around willpower because willpower gets weaker when you are tired or overwhelmed. Friction can be simple. Remove your card from shopping apps. Give yourself a 24-hour waiting rule for anything you do not need right away. Spend less time around places that constantly make you feel like you are missing something. At the same time, make saving and investing almost automatic. Move money into a separate account as soon as your paycheck comes in. Let the money meant for your future leave your sight before you get the chance to spend it. But there is something even more important than technique. You have to define what enough means. If there is no stopping point, your life will always catch up to your income. A bigger paycheck creates a bigger version of normal. What used to feel like a luxury quickly starts to feel essential. Defining enough does not mean rejecting every desire. It means deciding for yourself what level of life actually makes you feel comfortable and at peace instead of letting the pressure around you decide for you. A home that is good enough. A car that is reliable enough. A life that feels good enough that you do not feel deprived, but not so expensive that it demands every dollar you earn just to support the image of it. And finally, the gap between what you earn and what you need to live is not leftover money. That is the part that builds freedom. A lot of people only invest whatever happens to be left at the end, which is why years go by and they still have not built much. A better approach is to invest in the gap before your lifestyle has a chance to consume it. That money goes into your emergency fund, your retirement accounts, and steady long-term investments. That is how life starts to feel lighter. Not because you suddenly earn twice as much, but because each time you earn more, you stop letting your life become more expensive right along with it. When money stops pressing down on you so heavily, the first thing that usually changes is not the number in your bank account. It is how your body feels. You sleep better. Not because all your problems disappear, but because your mind is no longer running in the background all day and all night. You are no longer lying in bed while your brain scrolls through next month's bills, upcoming payments, or that quiet question of where the money would come from if something went wrong. It is hard to explain that feeling to someone who has never lived with it, but anyone who has been under financial pressure for a long time understands it immediately. Financial stress does not just make you feel short on money. It keeps your nervous system in a constant state of defense. And when breathing room finally shows up, your body feels it before you even have words for it. You also stop panicking so easily when normal life happens. The car breaks down. A medical bill shows up. 1 month costs more than you expected. Work becomes unstable. Someone in your family needs help. None of those things suddenly becomes pleasant, but they no longer come with the feeling that your whole world is about to cave in. That is the difference between someone who is barely staying afloat and someone who has margin. One person lives like a small disruption could throw everything off the rails. The other still feels the weight of hard moments but has enough stability to deal with them without falling apart. And maybe the most valuable change of all is that you feel less trapped. When money is no longer wrapped around your throat, you make clearer decisions. You do not have to say yes to everything out of fear. You do not have to stay everywhere just because you have no way out. You can think further ahead, see more clearly, and choose based on what is actually good for your life. That is the real power of money. Not to impress people, but to help you live with less fear, less panic, and more inner freedom. If you go back to where we started, you can probably see that the problem was never just that you spent too much. The real problem is that life can quietly become so expensive that you end up using almost all of your energy just to keep it running. And if any part of this video felt like hearing your own life described out loud, then maybe it is time to ask yourself one very simple question. Is the life you have right now actually helping you feel more secure, or is it just forcing you to earn more so you can keep carrying it? The goal is not to own less stuff, just to look disciplined. The goal is to feel less weighed down by money, sleep better, breathe easier, and have more choices when life changes. If you feel like you have been trying to hold up a life that is simply too expensive to maintain, start with one small change this week. And if this topic hit home for you, leave a comment and tell me one thing that has been quietly making your life more expensive than it needs to be. And if this video spoke to something you are living through right now, make sure to like and subscribe so I can keep making content that helps money feel clearer, more practical, and a little less heavy in everyday life.